The headlines have been full of speculations about the impending burst of the housing bubble, and for the first time since COVID, we have actually seen a shift in our incredibly hot market here in Raleigh. Here in Raleigh, we have gone from an average of 4 days on the market in April to 6 days on the market in May. But the shift is not being felt equally in all parts of North Carolina or in all parts of the country for that matter. In today's video, we're going to take a look at some data from Moody Analytics, which is saying that many markets in the Tar Heel state, that's North Carolina, have become overvalued. You've heard me say before that most market predictions end up being wrong. And while I can't tell you what will happen, nobody can, I can dig into the criteria that Moody uses for their predictions so you can decide how much weight to give them. In today's video, we're going to look at which North Carolina markets Moody says are overvalued and the criteria Moody uses to make these predictions. And it's no surprise, but I found a gap in the information it appears they base these forecasts upon, which I think changes the prognosis for our market. This property was listed by a fantastic listing agent in my brokerage. Like about 30% of other properties listed in May in the MLS, it did not sell in the first weekend in May. We know exactly why it didn't sell, but it's a great example of what's happening in the market right now. We've gone from 0.3 months of inventory to 0.7 months of inventory. A balanced market is 6 months of inventory. Less than 6 months is considered a seller's market. So it's still a really strong seller's market with less than a month of inventory, but properties like this one are the types of properties that we're seeing not selling as quickly as we're all used to. Ideal properties are still selling like hotcakes. You're still going to have to fight for those. But properties like this one, where you might need some redesigning to make it flow better, might be a way to get into the market without the fight. If this property had been listed a month ago, we would not be having this conversation right now. It would have sold regardless of the floor plan. Now, before we get to the Moody Analytics data, let's see how Moody comes up with these market evaluations. What makes them say that one area is overvalued and another is undervalued? I couldn't find anything about how they evaluate housing markets, and that should raise an eyebrow or two. Maybe their criteria is listed on their website somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But I did find this report about how they generate their evaluations of city governments, and I think there's some crossover there, so we're going to take a really quick look at the criteria they use for those evaluations just to get an idea. When Moody is evaluating a government, they're looking at it like a business. What are your expenses? What are your revenues? Is this city a good investment? But valuing a city is very different from valuing a real estate market because the government's information about this is closely monitored and easy to access. It's public knowledge. Also, governments move slowly. It takes time for governments to make changes. Accurate data of what's happening in a government, i.e. how much money they have coming in, is more easy to grab because it's slow moving. But you do need some similar information about private citizens for valuing a real estate market because the real estate market is influenced by people's ability to purchase, which basically means how much they make and how much they can afford to spend, just like governments. But how do you determine if the people living in an area can afford the housing in that area? In the 2008 crash, one of the big issues was that people were purchasing, but actually weren't able to afford what they were purchasing. They were speculating, gambling. They took out adjustable rate, interest-only loans with the intention of selling the house within a short span of time and pocketing the increase. And of course, it all came crashing down when they could no longer pay due to job loss or simply from carrying a higher mortgage payment than they could really afford. And they couldn't unload the property for a profit, so they stopped paying the mortgage. To some degree, this is what Moody is saying about these markets that they say are overvalued in relation to the income of the people living in an area. They're saying people can't afford them and implying, or at least that's what a lot of people are going to assume, that one day they won't be able to sell them either. But what's really weird is that their conclusions are the complete opposite. We're going to talk more about that in a minute, but first let's look at some of the different markets in North Carolina and see which ones Moody believes are overvalued. Once we look at their analyses, I'll share with you the information they seem to be missing that I think will have a significant impact on whether their predictions are correct or not. In this graph, I've listed the percent overvalue of every market in North Carolina that Moody looked at. Moody did not find any undervalued markets in North Carolina. There's no great deals here. Keep in mind that the lower the number, the less overvalued the area is, according to Moody. Look at Hickory, North Carolina right here. The median household income in Hickory is in the same range as the first three on the list with the lowest percent overvalue. But the home prices in Hickory are much higher than the home prices in the bottom three areas. I'll tell you right now the reason for this. It's twofold. First, Hickory has some beautiful mountain views. It's about as close as you can get to Charlotte and buy a home with a view. So you have a decent number of people buying second homes in Hickory who don't actually live there. Or, and this is a guess, maybe Hickory has seen a larger influx of people from the West Coast than any of these other lower income cities, simply because if you're moving across the country and you're choosing between these areas, are you going to choose the one with the mountain mountain views or the one without? I know what my answer would be. So it makes sense that the income of the people living in Hickory doesn't support the local housing prices if many people are purchasing second homes there with incomes they're generating from areas other than Hickory, or if they're coming with work from home jobs. So here's the situation with this property and probably why it did not sell in the first weekend. So this is the master bedroom that we're walking into right here. And to my left is the master bathroom, which is accessible from both the hallway and the master bedroom. So it's both the guest bathroom and the master bathroom. And I would imagine for a lot of people that layout is not ideal. What's kind of cool about this is as our market shifts just a little bit, in properties that don't sell the first weekend, they're going to be properties like this one that are maybe don't have an ideal layout or an ideal floor plan, but this one is in an amazing area. It's in a lake neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood. It's really close to all kinds of amenities in Raleigh, several big lakes, Umstead Park, Sola Coffee, a really cool shopping center where there's like an indoor playground for little kids. So if you have little kids, you can play when it's freezing outside. It's a really great area. Lots of people love this area and try and get in here. But a house like this, even just a month ago, many people might have been nervous about making an offer just because it's such a popular area that they might, properties might go $100,000 over. But obviously that's not happening with this one because it didn't sell the first weekend. So if you want to get into this Northwest Raleigh area and you haven't tried because you think you can't, here is a great opportunity. Let's take a look at the data as a whole. So we've got Greenville, Fayetteville, and Rocky Mount as least overvalued, meaning they're the best value for the money, but still not a good value according to Moody. Winston-Salem, Raleigh, Cary, and Greensboro are right in the middle of the range for overvalued areas. And the top three most overvalued areas in the state are the Hickory area, Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is where the big Marine Corps base is down on the coast, and Asheville out in the mountains is the worst value for the money according to this report. Now, let me get real with you. This is what makes me question this information, particularly about Raleigh, but it could also be an issue for other cities. It makes absolutely no sense to me that the Triangle area would be more overvalued than any of these bottom three areas, maybe with the exception of Greenville, because, Mr. Beast lives there and the university with a really good medical school might make a difference. But generally speaking, there's something really off about these values. The best value towns are definitely the cheapest, but does that really mean they're the best value? To be a good value, they have to have something drawing people to want to live there. I don't believe those cheaper towns are the best value, and this is why. When I tried to find how Moody gathered their data, I wasn't able to find a description of that process, but I was able to find a clue. And in that clue, I think lies the reason for what I consider an error in which areas are overvalued. This is what Moody said back in 2021. But stress lines are beginning to show in the housing market. Home prices have risen so fast that they've become overvalued. Nationwide, house prices appear overvalued by approximately 10 to 15% when comparing price to income or price to rent ratios with their long run historical averages, according to my analysis. The other clue is right here. It seems obvious to me that their conclusions are a very simple calculation based largely on the ratio of the median income for the area and the median home price in that area. These two numbers are really important. However, the numbers that they used are suspect. When I pulled my median income numbers, I got them from census.gov, probably the most up-to-date location to find income numbers, right? But it takes time to collect and redistribute data. Look at how old these numbers are. The numbers on the census.gov website says 2016 to 2020. If Moody is using those income numbers, they're missing this huge piece of the puzzle. It doesn't appear that they took into account the many business relocations to these new areas. It wasn't just employees moving all over the place over the last 2 years, it was businesses. In the past 2 years, North Carolina has gotten 43,000 new companies that could create 200,000 jobs. These companies include Apple, Google, Fidelity, Fujifilm Diosynth, Credit Karma, Robinhood, and Invitae Medical Genetics Corp. And we keep hearing about new technology companies coming. Boom Supersonic Aircraft in Greensboro, biotechnology companies in Sanford. The median salary of these companies is absolutely going to have an impact on the average salaries in these overvalued areas. How much of an impact these companies will have on the median salaries of North Carolina locals isn't yet figured into the government data because it hasn't happened yet. But ignoring this changing atmosphere when making housing predictions is blind, in my opinion. As these higher paid jobs become reality, the ratios of affordability will change. If I'm right, and these higher paying industries continue to move to North Carolina, this slowdown will be a blip. Maybe this is the reason that organizations are contradicting themselves by saying in one minute that we're overvalued and then saying that prices are going to continue to rise. As incomes rise, demand for housing will continue to rise, probably not as quickly as they have been over the last 2 years, but it seems to me that even with the current housing market shift, buying a home in North Carolina is a smart investment. Now, if the insanity that's happening in the federal government does lead to the jobs not coming because businesses stop growing and expanding, that would be a different problem and one that I'm not remotely qualified to speak on. Regardless of whether we're overvalued or simply done skyrocketing, and regardless of Moody using the term overvalued, nobody believes we're in for a market crash. Indeed, every forecast model reviewed by Fortune still predicts that U.S. home prices will rise over the coming year. That includes models produced by the Mortgage Bankers Association, Bank of America, Fannie Mae, and Zillow. You've heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again. None of us have a crystal ball. We'll just have to see how it plays out. I will keep you updated with monthly reports as new data comes in. If you like this video, you'll probably like this one where I looked at the most recent showing data so you can see exactly how the market is changing in real time.